So to make our boxwood trees, the first thing you need to do is you need to have your oasis. Now your oasis needs to be trimmed because you can't just work on a square. You can trim it dry or wet. In fact, Sally's Egg Hive already did all of our oasis. When you're cutting your oasis, whether you're doing it for yourself or them, you're taking the corner off at an angle and going down. So you end up with something like this. And you do all 4 corners. And it doesn't have to be perfectly tree shaped or whatever, because you're going to do that as you do your filling in. One of the things that I have found working with everybody when they do it, sometimes the trees come out looking like a ball instead of a tree. So I actually have figured a way to show you all how to make them so that they're a tree and they go down and go up and you have a tree shape. First of all, a good thing for the new tree makers is to take and use a pie plate or even one of these around 9 inches. After you've soaked your oasis, this one has not been trimmed, but after you've soaked your oasis, you want to put it in a dish. Most of the dishes that you will be working, in fact all of them that you will be working on, will have an insert in it. It's like a square bottom, so the bottom fits very tightly in there and you don't have to tape it. If you have just a bowl or just a plate, you're going to have to tape it down with the waterproof floral tape. Otherwise it gets top heavy and when you go, it will go like that. So I'm just going to finish trimming this one up here. And we're going to start basically, and I'll do it right on here. Can everybody see this? Okay, when you do a tree, if you were painting a tree and you look at the trees, you will see it doesn't go straight down. It starts up here, going lightly, 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 lightly. See, you're going at an angle, the angle's getting straighter. And then you don't have that ball shape. And that's exactly how we're going to start putting our greens in. Going to find something to define my top. That's the height I want. Then I'm going to define my bottom. Such a good piece, but we'll use it. And I'm going to do that all around on all of the sides. It's not a rocket science. Don't get upset if it's not exactly, but it will come out the same as long as you use some kind of a pattern to it. I also will then go and take my tips. I'm using actually holly because I didn't have any boxwood in my yard. And put it in here. So you can see now that you have a gradual right there. And that's going to happen all the way around the tree. And then you go back and you're going to fill in. And that'll go down. I don't know what kind of pieces I have here. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. And then I still will have that shape. If they're up a little bit here, and then they're going down, 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 until the bottom ones are going straight in and out. I do have directions here. So when you're doing your tree, ultimately, this is what it's going to come out to look like. Everybody see? It has a tree shape. Yeah. At least I think so. But anyway, so that's your basic tree. And that holds true whether you're using the fir, the boxwood, the holly like I did, whatever. And then you have something that resembles a triangle. But I did discover that I was thinking about it because I've done this for many years and worked with Alder at the workshops and everything. Sometimes they're looking like this, and it's just because of inexperience and not knowing how to win. You know, it's like you start stuffing and you don't know when to stop. So, but this will give you shape this way. And I thought, well, how can you do that? But you can either draw a circle, use a pie pan, use one of the rim covers for your pie plates. It just gives you a base so that it's kind of even all the way around to go on. The next thing you would do is you would put your lights on. I did bring some lights. Your trees, those that are making the trees, they will bring them back as made trees without lights. I will have the lights all ready. You'll leave them. I'll put the lights on them, and then I will call whoever's going to decorate that tree. Because it's a process of getting everybody to kind of, and if it's the same person, then they'll just come back and get it. Because I usually do the lights, but I would love to teach someone else to do them. They all need to be stretched. If you're doing one at home, you need to stretch all the crinks out of it, otherwise it doesn't go on the around right. They're usually 50 lights to a string. And I stretch it out. I take the top one. I didn't bring any wire. The top one generally will be wired to whatever is going up at the top here on your tree for your topper. And the reason that's done is because then you have a little light behind it there. And then it's just a matter of wrapping them, but don't, my scarf's getting wrapped in the tree. New decoration. So you're going to go around, and as you're going around, you're tucking them in a little bit because you don't want to put them all on the outside. I think I can do this way. You don't want to put them all on the outside. You want to tuck them in like this, going around, and keep going. And they actually, in the boxwood, the green wire fades away very quickly into it. On this, because it's a different shade of green, it's a little bit noticeable. But you're just going around and around and around, and till you get to the bottom. Hopefully, your plug's going to end up in the back of whatever you're doing. So you don't want your plug, like with these stars, if you're using these, you don't want your plug to end up here. You want your plug to end up in the back of it because it's not shiny in the back, and that's where your stick is glued onto it. So that's what you're doing there. Then you have all of your doodads. You will be getting a bag, a regular grocery size bag. It will have your Oasis dry, all trimmed but dry. Your container, you'll have to soak your Oasis before you put it in. Then you will have also in it a bunch of stuff that will go with one tree that match. It's all kind of coordinated, so you will get that if you're the decorator, and the lights will already be on, and you'll be all set to go. Trying to make it easy because we just can't have the workshops like we do and everything. You'll have ample stuff to start your decorating with. If you start with your biggest pieces first, I'm just going to do one side of this. And then you go on to maybe another accent. I tried to put different things together so that you would have different items as well as color, because it's no different than a design. You want some balance to it. I cannot see anything I'm doing in the front here, Sue, so you need to tell me. So that's the beginning of it. And then you make, I think every tree will have 3 items. They'll all graduate in size. You'll have a bigger item. These gift packages were a little smaller than the drums. And then some berries. And that will continue all the way around. So that's basically how you go about doing your tree. Okay. So any question? The bows go on last, and you just kind of tuck those in between, because everybody likes their bows on their trees.
Can you talk a little bit about how the boxwood comes and the size?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. And actually, there's going to be a written sheet that goes out with it. Sally was concerned that everybody was going to cut their boxwood too big. I can tell. So, but you're going to, if your boxwood comes about like this in pieces, sometimes it's smaller, sometimes it can be almost a branch in it. Depends on where they've cut it from. So you want to cut it. You don't want to cut everything this size, because it's going to come right out. You need a variety of sizes. Up in here, you would use something like that size in your top. But then you want to go to something more. This is not a good piece, but size-wise it's good. So you're going in there, so you're still keeping your angles. And when you get your four sides done with your angle going down, then you go back and gradually fill in. And I always start at the bottom and work up once I've set this. And that seems to always keep its shape doing that. But the pieces do need to be cut. You don't take something like this and shove it in. Or something, say, oh, it's this long, like this. See what happens? You lose your whole shape.
Can you talk about the quick way or an easy way to soak your oasis? How do you soak oasis?
I just fill the kitchen sink and dump it.
Right, but you don't press them down.
You don't. You just let them go, and as they get water in them, they will begin to sink on their own. Yeah. But see how I just stuck in like that? I kept the shape doing it. And that's the most important thing, because you'll find if you don't keep your shape, then you've lost the whole Christmas tree look. Okay.
You shouldn't go too deep into the oasis, because I had 3 boxwood trees last year. They broke in half because too much of the stem had been pushed into the
oasis.
So we had to do 3 of them over because the oasis just collapsed.
It collapses. Everything that's picked for the trees is picked on this kind of a pick. The only long pick we have is the one for the top. Thank you, and I'll get in touch with everybody that signed up, and then if we still need more people, we'll manage to get you too.
Just a form on the back that you can buy at a store. Ours will come pre-made, but I just grabbed this from my stock, and then I took the basic U, and I took pieces about this size, and I put them like this and layered them all the way around the wreath. And then I took my wire and just wrapped them all. So I started with that. And then next I tried a little skip laurel to add a little bit on it. So I took those and did the same thing, again wrapped it. So now I've wrapped it twice. And then I started making a few bundles, and that's what we're really going to talk about. So right now there are 3 bundles here, and that's as far as I'd gotten on this, and then I'll do some layouts. And with bundles, I like to work with your basic color, texture, shape, and I do anywhere from 3 to 5 pieces in each bundle. And when I'm doing it, I luckily have a yard with a ton of greens. And you know, you have your flat arborvitaes, which are lovely. On top of those, you have your flat cedars, which I love. And with both these, I often turn them to the other side and you get a different color. So it works quite well. And I like to start with those. A little bit of yellow often goes well with your euonymus that's in yellow, which I didn't have any of. And here's some pine ones that I've done. I found this at a neighbor's yard. I won't say who. And I love a little bit of the yellow in this. It's kind of fun. I like to top each one, as you'll see, with a decorative piece. So I've got the Pieris, otherwise known as Andrometer. And I love the male and female Skimmia, which is an awesome one to use. And on the wreath, you'll see that I've used the Euonymus and the Skimmia to add a little red and white for the Christmas color. So having said that, I love pine, your umbrella pine. When you use your umbrella pine, don't cut long pieces of it, because what happens is you end up with your end being exposed, and you really don't want that. So just take the ends, then you can cut this to whatever you want. These can be flattened down, they can be opened up, and they just add, again, another texture or color. You have your different pines, your white pine. Always like to have a white pine in it. It just adds feathery look, which you'll see in Gloria's and in Sue's. It's just wonderful. Not as much in favor of your big black pine. It's a little much. It's not bad if you cut just one piece. It's not too bad. And it's a good filler if you're doing something else. And my favorite is the Pinus parviflora, because I love the little bit of blue and white on it. You can cut it and have a nice little piece. It's kind of thick and makes a nice topping. Your junipers, just the best. And I like when you do a blue theme. So in this I've got a little bit of the back of the cedar, which has a little bit of white to it. I've added blue spruce, and then I've done the blue moss, which I just love. Alda's got some in her yard. And then a little bit of the Pinus flora. So you've got a little bit of a blue tinge. So think about your colors when you're doing the wreaths as well on that. So that's kind of all of my various materials. Oh, Atlas blue cedar, little pieces are great. Again, this is one of the toppers I put on the top. So if I were to start doing one, take a piece of this. I'm going to take off the bottom pieces, and I'm going to layer, let's see. Oh, let's do a little bit of the yellow. So do this. I'm going to put in, and I love to put all my stuff out in front of me. I can pick and choose, have fun as I go. Take a piece of I'm going to put the pine, and then put the yellow on the top. And then this is one of my favorite, which is the Kathy Cryptomeria. And this one is I have one called Granny's Ringlets, which is a little more floppy. This one I can cut apart and use different pieces of it. And I'm going to cut it right in there. And when you're cutting this, I cut it and you really can't see the stem, so I can reuse this piece. So I'm going to take off the bottom ones, and I'm going to put that on the top, and it gives a nice kind of full look to it. And then I'll take my wire, and I kind of move the wire kind of in between, so I have about 1 inch to 2 inches on the bottom, and I kind of sneak it in like that. And I take it and I twist it in the back. And I twist and I twist, and I missed a piece in the front. So I'm going to go back and wrap that one on and twist again. So now when you look at it, nothing's falling out. So I would take a few of these and I start to kind of lay them out. And I started here, so I would continue over here. And I make a few. I have another one made up. And again, don't look at my colors quite, say, because I'm mixing. And I'd lay another one. And then I'd kind of go all the way around and then put it down. So with this, once I've gotten a few laid out, I'd kind of move them off. And with another piece of wire, take it And I tend to, again, try and go in and about the pieces, wrap it on the back, twist heavily on the back, and if I can bring it back into the front, I twist it again in the front so you're not leaving an open cut wire on the back that can scratch somebody's door. And then, as Carol Lee taught me, always check your shake test. Here's another one that's made, and I have the wires on. So I'm gonna, and in the original format of making these, like with this one, because it's thin, I would be doing a layering effect that goes like this and like this and like this. With these, and our wreaths come in so full when we're making them, you really only need 10 to 12 bundles for each one. And that's why, and I like each bundle to be almost 7 inches, as you can see. So that this one now would come down here, wrap around, again twisting in the back a couple of times, and then bringing it to the front and twisting it. And you can see how it starts to thicken up a little bit. And again, it's, you know, think of your color, think of your texture. You know, because the wreaths are all I don't recommend using this. The junipers are nice for the top ends to come off, but you can also get this and this and this. And I think that, and you know, these I love when you cut your pieris, you know, cut it just for one. I tend to start here and go this way so that the top covers the bottom, and go all the way around. Even though these start to go upside down, I still do it that way because you don't really see it being upside down. You could choose to put them all going to the top and then put something down at the bottom, a decoration, but I don't recommend it. You really can't tell which is top or bottom at this point. I like to pick a few, like as you noted, I started this way, so I alternated with the red and the green and white, and I would probably continue that around on this. I did some blue bundles, I would continue with the blue. So I pick a palette, and that's part of the design and the color. I pick a palette that I use and continue, and go all the way around. Yes? Anybody else? Sue?
This is a repeat. So we have the bundles going towards the top, or are they all going in one direction?
I suggest all one direction.
Okay.
And then, you know, some people like to start with the twist and then work their way around. I kind of do it at the end going, okay, where do I want to put my tag? And with the tags, I'm not sure that you'll be able to see this on camera. This is a thin wire that I'm working with. One of the ways I do it is I have 2 pieces together and 2 ends. And then I take it and I twist from about this far for the ends and about this far for the loop. And I twist that all the way down. So that's one way. Then I could take this and put it through, like with this, because I've got a wire, it's easy to do. And I could put it through, and then I put the end through the loop and then twist the end pieces around. You can take a nice long piece, our wire is a little heavier gauge, put it around the whole thing, bring it up and twist it, but always take your ends and then twist it around and then twist the loop around. It makes a fairly strong loop on that basis. Thoughts? Questions? No? Lunch? Thank you, ladies.
The size, height, width of the arrangement. You want to be able to see across to the other person, and this is quite full, but I have used a sort of an oval plastic container underneath, and that container actually has prongs in it, so I didn't need to do anything to adhere it. I could have used tape, but it wasn't necessary. But if you don't have a container like that, these are very helpful, and you can put them in your container and adhere it with glue. There are other adhesives that you can use, and space them so that the brick of Oasis is firmly in place. I don't know if I need to go through a lot on Oasis or greens because a lot has been done on Oasis, but if you have any questions on Oasis, when I soak my Oasis, I usually have flour preservative in the mixture, in the water. So it's already in there and hopefully will help with the longevity of the arrangement. So what I've done is, thankfully to Sue, I raided her yard and came up with lots of different greens, many of which are represented over here. But if you look to your book, these are the elements of design. And while you're not being judged, it's good to reference this. And basically it's balance, contrast, which you have with the various different forms of greens. And there's dominance. I don't know that any one thing dominates here, but, and then we have proportion. I tried to keep it in proportion, and I started in the middle, like here. And then I used that as my focal point, and then I would go out from here. So this needs to be trimmed. And I recommend, I've used scissors, I use a paring knife to cut this, and a longer knife if you need it. And it seems to work well. All right, now I have to do this like, I meant to cut these before. This is gonna be maybe a little out of, but what you do basically is consider your focal point, and everything should sort of emanate from there. So if it's not exactly right, and this is usually 5 to 6 inches, and I have the Oasis 2 inches above the container. So it's always handy to have a tape measure with you if you're new at this and can't just eye it. So, this is Lacothway that I picked from my yard, and so you just sort of start it like this. Oh, it's too long. Sorry, I should have pre-cut these. Okay. It's too long, sorry. Any questions while I'm doing this? No. Okay. And then I continue. You can see I did cut off the corners, leaves more space for the greenery or flowers or whatever you're putting in. And I did cut this down so that it's about 2 inches above the container. But since we're doing a centerpiece for a table where people will be seated around it, you have to, you want to see the person across from you. So, so just sort of continue like this. And
Lori, can you mention the sort of the width? What would you recommend? So, because you talked about going in long and using a tape measure, how wide if you're making a rectangular?
well, this is kind of a, this is, one book I read said 5 inches, and then the ones to the side,
Yeah.
6 inches.
Okay.
Do you have any comment on that, Alda?
Well, it all has to do with balance.
Right.
It has to do with the visual. You look at it and you say, okay, does this look in proportional balance?
Right.
And like she said, if you're not very experienced, you can use the ruler so both your sides will be roughly about the same width.
Right.
And then your height, you don't want to increase your height. You want to just follow and come down on the sides. And but it's all to do with your visual and the balance of the design. Also, the style has to do with it. If you were doing a round one, of course, you would try to make all sides the same dimension around. But because she's doing an oval, she's going to expend more to the sides than the longer sides than the narrow sides.
Right.
Good to know. So basically, you know, I'm working from this center piece. I'm using all the same because I ran out. I ran out, and I don't think I have some white pine I could plug in. But if you want me to do more, I can do more. Do you get the essence of it? Yes. Misting your arrangement is always a good thing. Checking the water, you might have to add more water, and if I were adding water, I'd add conditioned water, you know, with a floral life in it. But when you are cutting, you do cut at an angle so that you can get as much surface exposed to water to keep it fresh. And some of the woodier stems, I tend to, like juniper or cedar, I tend to splay, sort of cut into the stem so it's not just at an angle, but it's separated a little bit, and then plug it in. That seems to work for me. So I just, you know, started here and then went from there, and I used, I've got some Andromeda here, I've got some Skimmia, I've got different kinds of pine, white pine, I've got cedar, Leland cypress, I'm probably missing something.
That's lovely.
But, and this is the back. Might be too big for some dining tables. It's hefty. But, so, and I minimized, I like the woodland feel of it with all the greens. So I didn't add a lot of, you know, bright. Yeah, no, I didn't. Just a couple of pine cones and just some red to give it some bounce. So, any questions?
Lovely. Yeah. Bring it up for people to see.
Oh, sure.
It is beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
I guess I'll start. So this is what I did. These are the same mugs. They're big mugs. So I started, this is fir to get my height. Like I said, 1.5 to 2 times the height or the width, depending on what kind of a piece you're doing. And I pre-cut these. Let's see, which pile is which. Of course, I don't have. So then I started. This is Leland cypress, just like Carolee, and just like Gloria. Maybe this is one of the taller ones. Start here. This oasis might be a tiny bit taller than it should be for a mug, but I wanted to be able to yank it out if you people didn't know how to cut it down, but Carolee showed you how to do it. So, all right. And then you just go around the whole thing, and I put a little bit. You don't want them any taller than this. And in my centerpiece, I used about 4 different kinds of greens. They're all from my yard. This is, I started with the fir and got some white pine. I put a couple pieces of holly in for a variety in texture, and also I wanted to use the Santa Claus and ornament, and it's small, to go with the little reindeer, but it was too small for a focal point. So I added the holly on both sides, and I still didn't think it was large. The proportions weren't right, so then I added these 3 bulbs together. And then I added a little bit more color to make it festive. All right, and so here's certain kind of hollies are easier to work with. This I think is American holly, but where's Carolee? Carol Lee, did you tell me this wasn't American? Japanese, I don't know. The English holly, which is this, is really pointy and sharp, and it's a bear.
I like that one.
Yeah, it's a bear. I mean, you'll cut right through your glove. So if you want to use one piece for a focal point, that's one thing. So that's all I did, is I just went around with the Leland cypress first, and then I started with the holly, and this is skimmia. I didn't realize skimmia was so popular. It's a great plant. It has something to offer year-round. But this is a great plant to fill in. Mine, I'm telling you, is almost the size of this table. I have 2 of them on either side of our front door, and they've been there since we built the house 19 years ago. And it does get berries. And I was out there picking it going, is this going to turn into berries? It doesn't seem like it will. So I must have 2 in the same area. I thought it was one big plant. Okay, because it does, and it gets little white flowers. But see how pretty that looks? For filler or whatever you want to use it for. I use it a lot, and it lasts forever. And I like the holly too. I'm not going to do this whole thing because you've already seen it done, and that's, I guess what I would say about the mugs is you just don't want to use something with really large leaves like a rhododendron, because it's not in proportion. You need something softer and smaller, daintier, and the Leland cypress is great for that. So that's it, guys. Thank you.